I'm Judy Zelina. This is the Millcreek Government Channel. The Crime Victim Center started back in 1973, where it was known as the Rape Crisis Center. The services they provided at that time were to assist sexual assault victims, their family, and their friends. But services have expanded throughout the years with direct victim services to reduce crime and the impact of crime, including sexual violence through counseling, prevention, education, and advocacy. We have Paul Lukacs joining us today, and he is the Executive Director of the Crime Victim Center. Paul, thank you so much for being on the program again. You always have so much information.
Judy, it's amazing to be here. Thank you for welcoming us back.
Well, Paul, I understand that next year is a very special year for you.
Indeed it is.
So can you tell us a bit about that? And also, how did it all begin, Paul?
Yeah, so next year marks 50 years we've been in service to the Erie community and the greater Erie area. It started with a very independent, strong-willed woman who said, look, the things that are happening to our daughters, at that time it was mostly about sexual assault, is not okay. And we don't have laws to protect them, and we don't have a place for them to go for safety and advocacy. So they got together as volunteers and said, we're gonna do this. We're gonna advocate. And actually, Joan, the first executive director and volunteer, she operated this out of the back of her car.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and had, wrote up some pamphlets about what these people could do and some phone numbers, and got some volunteers together, male and female, by the way, volunteers, which was fantastic. And she made them get their own beepers, because that was the thing then, beepers, right? And so she could beep anybody in the area, day or night, to assist in that area that they were willing to work in for whatever crime was happening there. Joan Martin was just an amazing woman, and still is an amazing woman, and we always want to remember how she decided that I'm a citizen of this community and I see something wrong and I want to fix it. And that's a message that we need to continue to remind ourselves, that we have the power to change things that aren't right in our community. Mm-hmm. So she did this, and then she started fighting for funding. And the interesting thing about this time in 1973 is this started to become a huge topic, not only at our state capitol, but at the national level. So in DC, they were talking about, okay, what are victims' rights? What do we need to change? Why is it okay for a man, even if he's married to a woman, to rape her? And what are the protections? So they started passing laws, and they started making dollars available through victim advocacy, which means when people were charged with these fines, some of those monies went to victim services. So that's how all of that got started, and funding became available. The profession started to roll out, and so colleges and universities started to say, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that we're training people properly to be able to do counseling and advocacy? And then eventually, as the years went on, we were allowed to go into the courtroom and actually advocate for the victims. In the beginning, we were barred from that, but our advocates now are able to, they are trained, and they are able to not only help the victims with preparing for that trial, if they choose to seek justice in that way, but also to be with them and protect them against the perpetrators in that realm.
Mm-hmm. I think what surprises me is when you were talking, we're talking 50 years ago, there weren't laws.
That is correct.
To protect these women.
Yep.
Or these victims. I guess I just find that so appalling, because now I think, oh, it's always been there, but it hasn't.
No, I mean, it was a time when men could still treat women as property. Okay. And that is only 50 years ago.
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
So we've come a long way. There's still more work to do. We know there's still injustices. We know there's still inadequacies, and there's not the level of cooperation sometimes there needs to be. And we know even in the workforce, there's still inadequacies between male and female workers. So there's still work to be done. But we've come a long way in victim services and advocating for victims who unfortunately find themselves in a really horrifying and often life-threatening situation.
And you have grown through the years, because as the years go through, you see different needs that seem to creep up that you get right on it and you're able to
Absolutely.
assist people with.
Everything we do stays within our mission of victim services, prevention and protection of those who have been victimized. But also, we want to expand and be as creative as we can within that mission statement. So yeah, we've created things like trauma-focused yoga and focus groups for adults of child sexual incidents that they've never talked about, and equestrian therapy, working with horses, and just so many cool things are happening, best practices, but we are able to bring those services to Erie County for the people who need it within our mission, and really be creative with how we can help people move beyond their trauma.
Okay, and now Paul, I know you provide so many services to our viewers that they may not know is available to them out there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of the services and expand on, why you've implemented that service?
Yeah, so everybody knows that we do counseling and advocacy, and people can come to us in a variety of ways, including virtually now. Since the pandemic, we've been able to be creative with virtual counseling. But a lot of people don't know that we also do the victim compensation and restitution. So that is providing expenses that would have otherwise come out of the pocket of the victim. We don't write checks to people. I want to be clear about that. We don't. You can't come into the office and say, "Hey, I've been robbed. Give me some money." But if you follow the right channels and you cooperate with a police investigation, we can help when we catch those perpetrators. And by the way, more times than not, the perpetrators are caught. And then we charge them in the court. There's a document file that they have to pay back the value of what they stole or broken or otherwise damaged. And then we make sure that the paperwork happens so that the victim gets that money back. It doesn't come out of their pocket. So if it's medical equipment, we make sure that they're made whole, and we provide the people who supply the medical equipment the dollars to do that. If say their window was broken because somebody broke into their house or their car, we provide the shop with dollars to make sure that those repairs are managed and it doesn't come out of the victim's pocket. Victim compensation is a little bit different. It's more inclusive, and we also help people who have been victims of identity theft, and the person who thinks they won the UK lottery and puts all their information in the computer and it's a scam. We help with all of those things too, as well as cyberbullying in those cases. So that's a little bit more expansive. And again, I want to be clear, those dollars come from perpetrators of crime. When they are caught and charged, they have to pay into this pool of money, and that's where those dollars come from. It's not your tax dollars. So it's really an amazing thing that we want the community to know, that not only are we bringing money back to people who need it and they don't have out-of-pocket expenses, but it's not your tax dollars. It's victims of crime who are making that happen because they did bad things. The other really cool thing that I want people to know is that we do a plethora of education and prevention services, and we can come to your schools, we can come to your hockey team, we can come to your baseball coaches association and help you with mandated reporter training, which all of those people need who work with kids, but also programs like Parents in the Know to help parents understand, how do I keep my kids safe? What adults can I trust? And how do trusted adults engage in healthy and safe practices when working with kids? So we have all of those opportunities for the community as well.
So is that just a matter of an organization giving you guys a call and say, I understand you do education. We've got a group here that we'd really like to hear you guys talk and see what we can do to help prevent this?
Yep, and we've set up things, like I said, for coaches associations, for volunteers. We've done programs with library staff. We've worked in corporations where people say, hey, you got a whole bunch of really good parents who are involved in their PTAs and their child's athletic groups. Can you come to our office and do this for as a benefit for our employees? Absolutely, yes. So we want people to engage in those services and to take advantage of those good offerings in Erie.
Okay, I know you also have support groups. What type of support groups do you have?
And we're retooling and imagining what those groups look like now, because as things change, we need to be as on top and on cue with people who need our services in the way that they want to be served. So we have survivors of homicide groups, which is a huge endeavor, and that's a tragedy when all of a sudden you have a family that was affected by a homicide, it creates all kinds of trauma. So we have support groups of that nature. We're going to be engaging in adult survivors of child sexual abuse, which is going to be a really huge need in the community. We're going to start groups or retool groups for victims of violence, because we're having so many violent attacks, especially in the young community, that we need to reach out for those people who've been faced by trauma and who've been in a school lockdown, for various reasons. That's traumatic. And so we need to bring those people in and help them kind of move beyond that and also recreate those safe spaces. We used to think schools were safe spaces. Well, not so much anymore. But we can recreate those safe spaces again and bring those services so that people are in an environment where they feel safe and comfortable and where they can learn and socialize.
And also, how do you work with the criminal justice system?
Yeah, so we are so blessed to have an incredible networking with the DA's office. And so the good people there, the DA and all of her staff are just amazing. And they end up acting as our lawyers for our people who go through the court system. So it's really very cool. And it's a great way to really network. And that doesn't happen in every community. So we're really blessed that Beth Hers and her group are so amazingly supportive, and that we can engage in that work and make sure that people, when they want to go through the justice system, have that advocacy. So we're working with them. We're helping people to understand what happens during the trial, what kind of questions are going to be asked. We go through the whole language, because it's like a whole different foreign language when you're there. And then we're physically with them in the courtroom during the whole entire trial. The other important thing I want to impress upon people is we want people to get the justice that they are seeking. That doesn't always happen, even in a court of law. So we need to make sure that we prepare the victims, their loved ones, and their families for all the possibilities that might come out of that. That is so important, because if all of a sudden a verdict comes out that is not pleasing to the family or the victim, there's still work to be done. That trauma is not going away anytime soon. So our work doesn't end. So part of our mission is to make sure that we help people not only understand what's going to happen in the courtroom, but all the possibilities, and then to follow up after the decision is made.
I think it's wonderful that you guys are there. I couldn't even imagine the fear and the terror on so many people going into it, with this being their first time.
Oh, sure.
And it's such a traumatic event that led to it.
Yeah, and the perpetrator's in that room with you, across the way from you. So that is incredibly scary, and it can be, especially for the victims and anyone who's going to testify on their behalf, incredibly intimidating.
I can imagine.
So we work with that process.
You guys do a great job. Now, I know you are not just located here in Erie. You've got some satellite offices?
Yep, so we cover any kind of incident that may happen throughout Erie County.
Okay.
We also reach out to our neighbors in Ohio and New York and New Jersey as need be, with permission. But we are primarily working with any victim, and again, they don't have to be a resident, any victim that has been perpetrated against in Erie County. So to that end, we have our office on 18th Street in downtown Erie, but we also have offices in Girard, in Fairview, in Union City, and in Corey area, to be as available to people as we need to be. And now recently, in the last 2 years, we've been able to do distance counseling, which has been a huge successful endeavor to help people who just otherwise can't get to us. Now they can get to us virtually.
And I was just talking with somebody about that. If, COVID was a horrid thing that's happened to us. But one thing, a positive thing coming out of that, is we were forced to go virtual. So we learned it, and we kind of perfected it. And now we realize the benefits of it, so we're able to bring that back and get the word out to more people.
Oh my gosh, it's been a huge boon. And it started rough, but it's getting better, and the technology's getting better. And now people sometimes prefer it. I only wish that I had invested in Zoom before the pandemic, right?
There you go. Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
But I'll tell you, we were barred from doing those things because of the confidentiality issue.
Okay.
And so we had to actually go to the governor's office, not just us, but other professional counselors, and say, hey, can we do this? We'll make it as secure as we possibly can. We'll use a program called Doxy, which is what hospitals use to share information, to make it as secure as possible. But I'll tell you, we're seeing clients that we would have never otherwise been able to see. And I can tell you that there are so many other good social service agencies that say the same thing. So yeah, it's been a boon, and I hope it doesn't go away, because again, we're getting a whole cross-section of people that we're otherwise not going to be able to help.
Right. And I don't think it's going to go away. I see everybody starting to move that way because of the success rate.
Absolutely.
Different organizations. Paul, I did want to ask you on the victim compensation, how do you determine someone if they're eligible for it? And how do you help them moving forward with paperwork?
So with that and with the restitution program, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be involved. For the restitution program, you have to have a police report. You have to be willing to work with authorities because we're going to catch those perpetrators and we're going to find out what they really did. So we go to great lengths to find out what was really damaged, what was really stolen, broken, taken, whatever, and what the real value of that is today. And that's really important. And then that gets electronically filed into the docket that goes to the judge. So it's there all the time. But it's a very involved investigation that our staff has to do. It's not taken lightly, and even though we like people and we want to trust people, we can't just take their word for it.
Exactly.
In victim compensation, there doesn't necessarily have to be a police report, but again, there's a huge investigation that goes along. We'll need bank records, we'll need validation that somebody's social security check was actually stolen. We'll need, a lot of different documentation to prove it. And then after we do our research and submit the paperwork to the office in Harrisburg, they then research it again. They're the ones that actually pay out the dollars to the people who are making that person whole. Again, the victim doesn't get the dollars, it's the people who are making them whole. It's the medical people, it's the person who's fixing the car, it's the person who's putting the new window in the house or the door locks, all of that kind of stuff. So there is our investigation, then there's a state investigation before any of those benefits are made. And I want to impress upon people too that it's a time-consuming process. So we could get our stuff done and send it in within a couple of weeks and say, yep, this is a good claim, and we really are behind this victim. It could take the state 2 months before, or 3 months before they make a determination. So we ask people to be as patient as possible. We're working on your behalf, but we have to make sure that we're not just doling money out nilly-willy, that there's really a purpose, and that we really have a good research process, and that takes time.
One thing I do know about your organization is you are known for your amazing annual events.
Oh, yes.
You guys do such a bang-up job on everything. Can you tell us what some of these events are that you have annually that our viewers can look forward to, maybe participate in?
And we'd love that. We'd absolutely love that. So we just recently had our biggest event of the year. This year it was called Roar Against Crime, and it was at the Erie Zoo, and it was a sort of 1920s speakeasy themed thing. It was so much fun. We had a bunch of people there, and they just had amazing food. We had, I think, 5 different food vendors and 3 different drink vendors, so there was all kinds of cool things to eat and drink and have fun, and all Erie flavors. We try to keep it local, we try to keep it fun. Next year we'll change that up a little bit for our 50th. We're not telling what it is yet, but it's going to be exciting.
It will be. It will be with these guys, trust me.
But then in January we have our annual cornhole competition. So that will be coming up in the wintertime, and that's a lot of fun, and we want to get as many people participating in that as possible because it's much more casual. It's a blue jeans and beer kind of event.
Where do you have it in January?
We are looking for a new space because we keep growing it. So we've had it in different fire halls. We've had it at the Elks Club. When the Manticore was existing, we used to have it upstairs there. So we're looking for a bigger space, but it's fantastic, and we want to get as many people involved in that because that is very affordable, low key, and just a lot of fun. We always have it on the off day before the weekend before the Super Bowl, so you can't have an excuse on watching the game because there's no game, right?
There you go.
So and that's really a great time. The other thing we're bringing back, we had to take it off the calendar for a couple years because of COVID, but we're going to bring back our big race. We have a big 5K race, which is a lot of fun, and we try to get every age group involved. We actually try to get some of our juvenile offenders to be involved to work so that they see the good side of contributing to the community. So we try to get a group from the juvenile justice group as well in that, and that will come back next year. So be on the lookout for our annual 5K.
Okay, you guys always just do, like I said, just an amazing job at any event that you have. You're talking about different funds and so forth, like the victim compensation comes from the actual, once they're caught. They've been caught. How are you funded?
In a variety of ways.
Okay.
So those 2 particular programs are funded by perpetrators, which is fantastic. Education and prevention is one of our most robust programs, and unfortunately, it's the most underfunded. So these events we just talked about, those dollars go to prevention education, which is
Okay.
so important because we
Right.
need that.
Yes.
There are a lot of really good sexual assault centers throughout Pennsylvania who don't have education because they can't raise the
Right.
funds. We have federal dollars, which are grant opportunities, which means we have to write the grants and spend a lot of time before they approve them. And then they only pay us after we actually do the work,
Okay.
which makes it very difficult because so say the federal government says, yep, you get $1 million in grants this year, that's great. But if you only do $300,000 worth of the work, you only get the $300,000. So you have to make sure you're on top of it doing the work. And again, I want to impress upon people, those are tax dollars and those federal grants, but they are scrutinized so carefully. And we have to stretch those dollars so much that know that your tax dollars are getting paid and they're being used in a really, really good way, in a positive way. So if you're ever wondering, where are my tax dollars going? Well, they're going to good programs, and we're stretching those dollars as much as we can. In the same vein, we also have state grants the same way, and the state has dollars in the same way. That's sometimes state tax dollars. And they say, okay, here's the work that you say you're going to do. We're only going to pay you after you do the work, which always creates a little lull. Again, fundraising fills that gap, so that's so important to us, and those private donations are a very, very big deal. And again, they're scrutinizing it and saying, we're not going to pay you until we know you've actually completed the work to our liking.
Right.
So people are watching us, people are on top of us, people are monitoring us at every level to make sure that we're spending your dollars properly, but also that we're doing the work the way it's supposed to get done.
And Paul, how are people referred to Crime Victim Center?
With programs like this.
Okay.
You know, these are the things that we like to do because it helps people understand what's in the community and to
Exactly.
access those services. Friends, families, board members, the police. We have a great networking with our local and our state police, and they know who we are. And oftentimes they even have our cards on them to give out to victims at the time of the crisis when they're intervening in some issue or incident. So those are all ways people can call us. We actually really prefer the victim to call us if they can, because we want to know that they want the services, and we want to know how we can help them on their level. We want them to be the voice. We want them to be in charge. So it's really important that we hear from the victims as soon as possible so we can design the program that they want, that they can be in charge of, and they can pick and choose the services they want to interact with. So those are all different ways. People also see us on the internet, on the website, www.cvcerie.org. That's a great way to get to us. We're in the phone book, if anybody even has one of those anymore, but you can look our number up online.
We'll Google you.
Yeah, and you can get to us that way. So there's a variety of ways, but I would say that the bulk of people come to us either because they've had a police interaction of some sort, or their friends or their family said, oh my gosh, this happened to you. We need to get you to the Crime Victim Center. Those are all great ways to get to us.
And you know what, Paul, I have to commend you that as we've talked, and you and I, we've done shows for quite a few years here. Every time I sit down with you, there's a new program. You're looking to expand in a different way. And I really admire that you are not keeping things status quo and staying stagnant. You are looking at the community and seeing what the needs are, and you are filling those needs.
You have to. Any social service must do that. We're a resettlement community, which means we have wonderful new Americans coming in. Every single month we have a great celebration of that. They're unique, and their cultures are original, and we need to not only embrace them, but understand how we need to change our services to make sure we're serving them wholly, because their belief system might be different than the one we're used to. You know, they're not standard Eastern European style.
Right.
So how do we serve the Nepali community and make sure we don't offend them and celebrate their differences? How do we serve the African American community or the Black community that's coming from other islands of that descent? How are we serving our Latino population, which is growing and wonderful, and they're doing amazing things in our town. So we need to not only know who's here, but how to best embrace their culture so we can serve them to their fullest desire without embarrassment or intimidation or harming them in some way that we don't intend. So it's constantly reinventing ourselves and making sure that we do the right thing for all the people in our communities.
Okay, and then on the flip side, Paul, how can we, the community, help you?
Donate. Donate, and above all, if you have people who need our services after seeing this program, encourage them to come. Come with them. Take them to our center. Help them to make that phone call. That is the most important thing. We need to be here for the people who need us. We don't always know who those people are. We're asking the community to make sure, if you're a victim of any type of crime, if you're a victim of intimidation, if you have this trauma that you can't overcome, and oftentimes you need to talk to somebody before you can overcome that trauma, right? Get to our door and get your friends, your families, your neighbors to our door when they need our services.
Paul, thank you so much for everything that you do for us, for the community. We all appreciate it, and I'm glad that our viewers are able again to learn exactly, what the different programs that you have to help us. Now, how can we learn more and get more contact information, or get more information and contact you?
Yep, the best way to do that is go online, www.cvcerie.org, or to come in to any of our satellite centers. We always have brochures and things like that. Or give us a phone call and we'll send you a packet of information, whatever you're looking for.
Okay, Paul, thank you again so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure. Viewers, again, if you have any questions or you need more information, please check out their website, or if you need to talk with somebody, give them a call. They are there for you. You will actually be talking to somebody and they'll be able to give you some direction. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning into the Government Channel, and until next time, have a wonderful day.